Hey everybody, it's Greg from Park Journey. Hope you're all doing well. It's been a little bit since I've done one of these at-home videos. Typically we've been doing more park updates and things recently, and I only typically do these when things pop in my head. We're going to have a Disneyland update here in a couple of days as well. I have some thoughts on Lightning Lane, our third time using it. So I'll have that probably early next week. I'll have some more Disneyland stuff. I'll be down there tomorrow. Also, Star Wars Celebration is coming up this weekend. We have Andrew and Steven at Discover Kingdom on Friday for Media Day for the new coaster there. And at some point this weekend, we'll have Magic Mountain and Universal Studios Hollywood update. So I'm a busy few days coming up, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about something that I saw on a theme park Facebook group that kind of caught my eye the other day. And basically what it was is somebody was asking for advice on visiting a park for the very first time. And the first comment on the thing was, well, leave the park to eat, go across the street to eat. And I kind of have an issue with that, which I'll get into a little bit. But I have like a list of do's and don'ts that I've written down here on my little notepad things, when somebody asks for advice for visiting a park for the first time, what we should be suggesting and not suggesting. So I'll get into that in here in a minute. But before I do, make sure you click below to subscribe to our channel. It's always greatly appreciated. So as I said, I've got my list here, 5 things to do and 5 things to don't do when somebody, is asking advice on visiting a park for the very first time. So again, we're only talking about the very first time someone's ever visiting a park. So whether it's Disney, Universal, Six Flags, Cedar Fair, any other park that you can think of, SeaWorld, Busch, whatever, somebody visiting for the very first time, and it's hard sometimes because, like, if somebody asks me, I'm visiting Magic Mountain for the first time, what should I do? I've been to Magic Mountain probably 500 times, if not more than that. So, it's hard for me to kind of put on that first time visitor hat, but I think it's important that we do so, just because, people visit things differently. And, the way that I visit Magic Mountain is not the way that I would suggest somebody the first time visits Magic Mountain, or even Disneyland, or any of the Southern California parks. The way that I patronize them, in the way that, my visits typically go, are not what I would suggest somebody for the first time. Likewise, I'm making my first visits to Silver Dollar City and Kings Island and Cedar Point later this year. I'm not going to visit those 3 parks the same way that I visit Southern California parks. So, you have to kind of, change your mentality a little bit when you are visiting parks for the first time, and you should, for sure. But also when you're giving advice to people who are visiting for the first time, that mentality should change when you are giving that advice. So I kind of wanted to expand on that just a little bit. So again, I'm going to refer to my list here. So the first thing you should do when you are being asked by somebody who's going to be attending a park for the first time, first thing you should do is tell them the best days to go. If a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is the best day to go, unless they've said, I only have, a Friday to Sunday, which day of those 3 is best, give them the best day. The least amount of crowds, the most amount of, attractions that are open, things like that. What time to arrive. Don't say, oh, you can arrive at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that. No, hey, if the park opens at 10, you need to be, in the parking lot or in line to park by 9, things like that. Common sense things that, again, like if I'm saying you're going to Disneyland for the first time and park opens at 8 and you want to be there right at open and you're parking in Mickey and Friends, you need to be in Mickey and Friends by 7 o'clock. That's just the way that it is. And then the other thing, somebody says, they have multiple days they can spend at a park. Suggest, a day and a half, 2 days. If they're visiting, obviously, something like Walt Disney World or Disneyland or Universal Orlando or, something like that, do you need a full day? Do you need more than 1 day at each park? Things like that. So, again, just kind of keeping in mind, looking at, what they posted and what they're kind of asking for. The other thing is, depending on what day they are visiting, or my number 2 would be, suggest, do they need to skip the line? If you're visiting on a, Tuesday in early May at a park that happens to be open, you probably don't need to skip the line. But if the only day you have is a Saturday in the middle of summer, it's your first visit, then, if that's something that's in their budget and something they've requested, do you think I need front of the line? Don't hesitate to say, yes, you need front of the line, because you wouldn't use it. Like, I've never used front of the line at Magic Mountain. I don't have a need for it. I visit all the time. But I've used it at every other Six Flags park I've visited, because I don't visit them very often, or my first time visiting, and I want to get the most out of my day. So I'll get the flash pass, or I'll do whatever. So again, just kind of taking off that frequent visitor hat that you may have, and, saying, okay, this is somebody's first visit. They may not want to wait in line, kind of going back to our visits coming up to Cedar Point later this year. We're going to be there during the week before Labor Day. So the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that week. Honestly, we probably don't need to get to skip the line, just because it's, from what I've heard from people, that have told me that it's a pretty empty week. We are budgeting for it, but we probably don't need it. But on the same vein, our days at Kings Island is that Friday night and Saturday before Labor Day. We're probably going to get it on that, at least on Saturday, because, again, it's our first time there. We have a day and a half at Kings Island. We want to make sure that we, experience everything. So we'll probably end up getting the skip the line for that Saturday. So again, just, going back to the day of the week, sometimes you want to skip a line, and then especially, like for Halloween events as well, especially somebody's, first time to, Halloween Horror Nights or Scary Farm or whatever, and they want to, do everything in one night. Again, we don't get skip the line every night at Scary Farm, but if somebody wants to do everything one night, then, suggest that they get the Fright Lane or whatever. And then one of the other things, the big thing that kind of brought this to my attention, but I'll get into the don'ts. But do they want to get the dining plan, the day dining plan, or the drink plan for the day, or if they're doing multiple days, get the multi-day or the year-long drink bottle or the drink plan, things like that would help save them money. If they want to have, sit-down meals, every day, then maybe don't suggest they get the all-day dining plan. But if they're fine with quick service, suggest, you can get the dining plan, you can get the sports bottle, depending on, kind of how they, what kind of, again, do they want to sit down for lunch or dinner or whatever it is, and kind of factor that in. So again, it might not work for everybody. Some people like to, have a more of a set meal than just quick service. But if they want that, then you go ahead and get the daily dining plan and things like that. And one of the big things is what do you ride first? So saying let's say like Magic Mountain, like I would suggest Tatsu X2 Full Throttle as the first, Twisted Colossus, West Coast Racers. Those are the most popular rides that you might want to go to first. So kind of suggesting if they're going to Disneyland, I would say go into Fantasyland first. Maybe not don't do Peter Pan right away, because it's always a 30 to 45 minute wait. You can do all the rest of Fantasyland in the same amount of time and kind of go back to Peter Pan later in the day or something like that. Suggest things like that. Again, not something that I would normally do on my visits. We're going to, Space Mountain or Rise of the Resistance or things like that. But if it's a first time person, letting them, know that they can get to Fantasyland and get through all of that stuff pretty quickly, is really good advice. Things like that. Or if you're Animal Kingdom, go to, Flight of Passage first, or, things like that. So just keeping that in mind. And then obviously, suggesting things like the Lightning Lane if they need it, depending on the day and things like that. So again, I think that's really good advice. And then lastly, for me personally, I'm not a huge show person, and typically when I'm asking for advice on theme parks, I will basically say I'm not a huge show person, and then people will suggest that I see shows. If it's something that people aren't into, then don't suggest those things. Like they have little kids, and then you go and suggest like the tallest, fastest roller coaster. It's not really why they're visiting. So kind of pay attention to the reason that people are visiting, and you give them advice, based on those suggestions or their priorities. And if it's something that you don't have any experience on, it's okay to not comment. It's okay to not give advice. If you're not familiar with the kid lands of certain parks, or you don't visit the water park and they're asking for advice on the water park, it's okay to just say, I don't know, and kind of move along. So just don't give advice that people aren't asking for is really kind of the fifth one. But if somebody's saying, I want to see shows, I want air conditioning, suggest the best shows. That's great. But yeah, just kind of pay attention to what they're kind of asking for. All right. So here's what to not do. And this was the one that really was the essence of me doing this video. Again, this was somebody who asked for advice. They're leaving the park. They're visiting this park for the very first time. And the first comment was, leave the park to have lunch. Don't do this. If it's somebody's first visit, don't tell them to leave the park for any reason. They're not there to go across the street and eat at Olive Garden or, whatever it is. They're there to experience the park. That's the sights, the smells, the sounds, the amount of money that they're paying. Let's say that, parks are, it's $70 average to enter a park. You're there at, 10 and you're there till 1 writing things. And then you leave from 1 to 3 to go, eat somewhere else and then come back. That's kind of you're wasting 2 hours of park time to leave the park and have something that you can have anytime you want. Yes, a lot of theme park food is not the best, let's be honest, but you can pretty much find something in any park that is decent enough, whether it's a burger or, Chinese food. Most parks have Panda Express now, at the amusement parks. So, just don't suggest people leave the park for any reason. Again, especially on a first visit. I don't typically eat at Magic Mountain because I'm there all the time. But I would never suggest to somebody, who's visiting Magic Mountain for the first time, don't eat there. I would suggest, hey, eat at Chop Six or eat at Johnny Rockets or whatever it is. I would never, ever suggest that somebody leave a park on their first visit. And I really hope that other people would not do that to me as well. Say, oh, yeah, you're at Cedar Point, for 3 days. Go ahead and leave, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and go eat, somewhere in Sandusky. I'm not going to do that. So yeah, that's definitely the top one, for me, that I would suggest people not do, unless, again, I mentioned on Twitter that, I think the one exception that I would make in this is let's say you're visiting Universal Hollywood and you want to have a sit down lunch. There's no sit down meals inside the park, but City Walk is literally right there. And I kind of feel that City Walk is kind of an extension of the park anyway at Universal Hollywood. So that would probably be the one exception that I would say you want to go have, Bubba Gump or Margaritaville or whatever it is. I think, that's acceptable. I'm okay with that. But to say, you need to leave the park and drive to the mall and get something to eat. No, not going to do it. Would never suggest it. Again, for a first-time visitor. If you're a repeat visitor and you visit all the time and you want to go do that, more power to you. It's a different kind of visit, and I get it. But for first-time people, don't suggest that. The other thing I would suggest is, don't tell people to crisscross the park a lot. So let's say, again, somebody's visiting Magic Mountain. Say, go to X2 first, and then go right to the Colossus. Like, you're talking about two completely different ends of the park. Some parks have very confusing layouts, like Six Flags St. Louis is kind of a confusing layout. It took me a couple of hours in that park to kind of get my bearings, to be honest with you, when I was there. But some of these parks are huge. Great Adventure is a very big park. Cedar Point, again, I've never been there, but from doing my research, it's a very large park. Don't tell somebody to kind of crisscross the park to do two things in a row. Just kind of say, here's your circle, here's what you want to do. X2, Tatsu, West Coast Racers, Apocalypse, Riddlers, Gold Rusher, Batman, Wonder Woman, kind of going around in a circle, using Magic Mountain as the example. So don't, there's a lot of walking involved at theme parks. You're doing probably 8-9 miles a day, depending on the size of the park. The amount of, try to keep down the amount of walking. So don't tell people, just don't do that. Just kind of give them a layout, a plan of attack, and then kind of go from there. And kind of going back to what I was talking about with like the shows and things like that, just don't suggest things that they don't want. Again, if they don't want to do the biggest, tallest, fastest coasters, don't suggest them. If they don't want to do shows, if they don't want to do water rides, don't suggest water rides. Things like that. Again, just don't suggest things that people don't want, that they're not asking for. There might be things that you enjoy, and that's great. But again, you're giving people advice, and just kind of pay attention to what they actually want. And this is a big one, and this happens at Magic Mountain a lot. You tell people to park off site and then walk to the park. Yes, parking is expensive. Parking sucks. It's a pain in the ass, but honestly, the amount of time that you are going to waste and the amount of energy that you're going to waste by parking offsite and walking a half mile to 3/4 of a mile to probably even close to a mile in some cases, it's not worth the effort. And then not even just that, but you could be parking in a place that is not legal. You could get towed. I've known people that have parked down at the, when El Torito used to be at Magic Mountain, and have parked down there, and then they come back down and their car is gone and got towed because they kept it there 12 hours. And it's happened at other parks as well. So, and then, even like around parks like Disneyland, the neighborhoods around there, you have to have permit parking. Knott's, I think, has that, as some neighborhoods around Knott's has that, and I'm sure other parks do as well. So don't suggest people park off site and just, if they want to, if they're staying in a hotel and they want to take an Uber or Lyft or whatever, taxi, you can suggest that if they don't want to deal with parking. But, to tell somebody to park off site and walk, half mile to a mile to get to the park, that's not something that we need to be suggesting. Again, that doesn't really add anything to their day. It kind of starts off on a bad note. And then lastly, don't tell people to leave early to beat traffic. Again, this is their first visit. We need to be paying attention that this is their first time here. Again, I very rarely do open to close out a park with our Southern California parks, very rarely. But again, this trip that we're taking in August and early September, we will be opening and closing parks. The parks are open from like 10 to 8 those days anyway. But we'll be spending full days in the park, in the parks that we're visiting. And so, don't suggest, park closes at 11, leave at 10 so you can beat the traffic a little bit. No, you should be suggesting, hey, 10:55, go get in line for this so you can get an awesome night ride on it. And then by the time they're off of that, traffic will be died down. So again, kind of the theme of this video is, put yourself in somebody else's shoes, not in your shoes that you visited your local park, 500 times. And this is how I visit. I go for a couple hours and then leave. That's not what the advice that people are looking for. That's not the advice that we should be giving. We want to make sure that we're really being ambassadors for these parks. And people are asking for advice that they're probably, it might even be general public people that kind of found the Coaster group on Facebook, and they might not know the ins and outs of all of these parks, which is great, which is fine. We should be encouraging that. And so we need to make sure that we are treating, approaching that as people that aren't just the experts of everything, and we're explaining things in a non-enthusiast way, so to speak. All right, hope you all enjoyed that. I hope you all kind of heed that advice a little bit. I know that most of you do give really great advice. Again, I've gotten some really great advice on the parks that we're visiting, or parks that I've visited in the past. I've gotten some really great advice, and I think we owe it to other people to kind of continue that great advice. All right, everybody, take care. Hope you're all well, and we'll talk to you soon.